mentioned that an agenda can have public comment at the end of it. In fact, I think we've had committee agendas that said public comment at the bottom. And there's been instances where we've had public comment at the end of the meeting. And there's even been instances where we tried to cut people off from having public comment only to have to remind people that it says public comment. And we've tried to cut people to 2 minutes when it said 3 minutes. There's never an error on the side of embracing and loving our citizens. It's always designed to suppress them and put the foot on the neck. And it's a pattern. There's voting patterns. We all have voting patterns. And I'm just saying that people got to reflect sometime, I think, on if you got a pattern of not embracing and loving the citizenry, then you got to ask yourself, why is that your pattern? Because nobody else can understand it but you. But everybody else gets to publicly see it. We don't vote in secret. We're the most transparent government there is because it's televised. And when you're saying voting and saying to people, no, I don't want to hear more from you. I wouldn't want to be responsible for having to go walk around the community doing something like that when it's not really a major inconvenience to embrace people. But there's nothing improper in the law for your meeting agenda at the end to have open public comment, because you're not voting on anything. You're just listening. Maybe you have some discussion. Maybe people are bringing you ideas of things that need to be addressed. What committee do the citizens of Wilmington get to go to when they're upset about all the shootings and killings in the community? What committee meeting do they get invited to where that's on the agenda? If anybody can show me where the Public Safety Committee had an agenda item on regular occasion for that, because it's not addressed through the committee structure, because there's no intention of addressing it. Remember, I said whoever sets the agenda is the one controlling what people talk about. Part of this fight on this floor, the mayor doesn't want the public to be able to hear them have an idea about what they want to talk about. He don't want to hear that. And some of us on council don't want to hear it. Everything got to be controlled. You can only come here and talk about this. In fact, if you look at the Public Safety Committee meetings, you'll see that certain times the chair will try to let her friends have leeway, and people who are trying to broaden it, she tries to suppress what they're saying. See, the suppression of the voice of people who aren't empowered, the citizenry, that's something that some people embrace as their goal for the higher up people. And then there's people that spend their life fighting for the little man to be able to have a voice. And there's people in between. So everybody be where you are. But the public watches, because this is one of the few areas where this is solely about them getting to be heard. That's all I have, Madam President.
Councilman Congo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Based on what Councilman Guy just talked about, that if we have on the agenda public comment, inviting the public to come and comment on whatever they want to talk about, is our city solicitor able to give his opinion on, our parliamentarian able to give his opinion on the legality of it, just to quell some of the concerns of other council members?
What is your question again?
Because some council members have a concern about the legality of this. So are we able to get
legality of what?
Of us opening up the floor and people being able to come speak on whatever they want to talk about? They said it might violate FOIA. So we're able to get an opinion based on what Councilman Guy just said, because if we have it on the agenda that we have public comment, because we're not voting on something, it's just a discussion, how will we be violating FOIA? Just to quell some of those concerns.
If you want me to address,
This
I
way-
have your permission.
Like you have the permission.
Your mic.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. Good evening, Councilman. I haven't, I've pretty much only had sort of informal discussions about the implication of FOIA with regard to this. So I really can't give you a definitive viewpoint. The viewpoint that was expressed by Councilman Johnson is one that has been brought to my attention. I would generally think that FOIA probably applies mostly to members of a body and not to the members of the public. I think the risk that would come into play wouldn't be so much from the comments of the public speaking with regard to subjects that aren't on the agenda. The risk would be the natural tendency of council members to then respond and discuss issues which are not on the agenda itself. And that discussion of matters of public interest, which would be done by the council members on the committee, if it isn't on the agenda and notice pursuant to FOIA, that discussion, it would be my view, would violate FOIA. But simply members of the public coming forth and discussing, for example, at a public safety meeting where there's no legislation on gun violence, but discussing the shootings and it's not on the agenda, I don't think that would be a violation. But I also cannot imagine that council members wouldn't respond to it and discuss it, and that would be a problem. It's my off-the-cuff thoughts concerning it. It doesn't constitute an official opinion. If you want that, you should write me an email, and I'll give you something a little bit more thoughtful and not off the cuff. Okay?
Well, thank you, and thank you, Councilman Guy, for bringing up that excellent point.
Councilman Oliver.
Thank you, Madam President. I think I'm going to be consistent also. I think the intent is pretty good, is good, Councilman McGoy, but I'm not going to be able to support this piece of legislation. I think we are elected by the people of Wilmington. We're elected by the people of Wilmington, and I'm just trying to see what are we getting out of all of this unnecessary. This is me speaking. These unnecessary meetings, special meetings. Here we sit around with a bunch of nonsense, and most of this is about procedures. It's not helping the citizens of the city of Wilmington. It's not helping the constituents. I think I have to agree with Councilman Johnson. We have a supermarket, Adams Ford, just in case most people don't know. I don't think they do. It's about to close, and that supports thousands of people. Nobody's mentioning it. We have housing issues. We have an opium issue. I just left a funeral day with the white family. I would prefer to be over there with the white family. We grew up together. I just left the funeral, just left the repairs. Had to leave my constituents to come to this meeting on a Friday. You're talking about somebody upset. I'm upset. We have crime issues. At the end of the day, what are our constituents getting out of this? What is the impact? I would like to do something that impacts the lives of the people out there, not in here constantly bickering amongst each other. And the only thing I can say is I hope people get out and vote 2020, and that's all I have to say.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess this agenda item has taken a turn somewhere else. We're talking about topics that doesn't have anything to do with this legislation. But since it has been mentioned about Adams Ford Shopping Center, there is some action that are taking place since my colleagues are interested in that and brought that up on this agenda item. One thing that we're trying to do is get everybody employees TWIC cards for that. So if you want to use some of your discretionary funds to help with that issue, since you wanted to speak about it, we'll be open to that. It's 80 employees. We'd love to have 80 employees with TWIC cards so they can at least have an opportunity if the shopping center is going to close. So I thank you for that, bringing that up on this agenda item. That's all I have to say, Madam President.
Councilwoman McCoy.
Thank
Closing
you, Madam.
remarks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. So I just want to make my colleagues aware that that was a concern, that it was brought up about the legality of it. And also, I did get a chance to speak to Councilman Frill about the fact that I am not a chair of a committee, and the chair actually does handle the agenda. And I stated that, I'm like, you know what, if you would like to do a friendly amendment, to talk about, the chair having the discretion to do that, that would be fine. We can vote on it, because I don't want to dictate someone else's committee because it's not mine. But I just wanted to make council aware that we have more than once given out basically the wrong information to to the residents here in the city. They've come to this floor. They either gotten a chance to come up and we're like, this is not the place. You should have been at a committee meeting, or they never got a chance to speak initially. And we're like, oh, come on to the committee meeting. And then these people get there, and then they're told that they cannot speak to anything. Even though they find the right standing committee, they are told that they cannot speak to anything but what's actually on the agenda. I'm not stating that we're going to have this overflow or flood of people who are actually now racing to the committee meetings, because they are still at 5. And, and basically if it's not something that they're really, is something on the agenda that they really want to talk about, they may not come. But if they are actually been misinformed or just felt as though that they needed to make certain council was aware of what was going on in their neighborhood, I did not want to feel like because of FOIA, they were not allowed to give their say. Give them their 3 minutes. When the Councilwoman Harley, I actually like the idea of, making certain that we deal with our agenda, that we, when it comes to the presentations that people are making, they are presenting, everyone's on a timeline, and we are definitely want to make certain that we are careful of their time. But as a person who's actually made their business to come to the city-county building, and they wanted their 3 minutes, they are more than happy. I'm more than happy to listen to their 3 minutes if I have to, just so that they can state, this is what I never got a chance to let y'all know what's going on. And that was the intent. It was never to, to bully anybody or break any laws or anything. I just feel as though we do a disservice when we always keep telling them, no, you can't speak. This is not the time. Everyone is not truly informed on the workings of council and how things are going. And I definitely am trying to, I've definitely tried to make certain that we do some educating. I've sent out some information, hoping that that'll work, that we can redo like a video or something to inform the people of the city on how council works. Until then, we are just making people angry by telling them that they cannot speak when they have finally made their way to get here. And that was basically the intent of this legislation. And when it comes, before I close, when it comes to the legality, I will look to Mr. Goff to go over this, and he will make us aware on whether or not this is legal. If it is not, there was still something else that I was trying to get, to bring up as well, but we couldn't get it together before this meeting. So,
Clerk will
that's
call
it.
the roll.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Councilman Congo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Oliver.
No.
Councilwoman Harley.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilwoman McCoy.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
No.
Councilman Friel.
No.
Councilman Adams.
No.
Councilwoman Dixon.
Yes.
Councilman Guy.
Yes.
President Shabazz.
No.
7 yeas, 5 nays, and 1 absent.
Pursuant to Rule 23, this is defeated.
Rule 23.
Rule 23 of City Council Rules, this is defeated. I will give the city solicitor the floor to Rule 23 of City Council Rules.
Okay. So what happens is by charter, council is allowed to promulgate its own rules, as is stated in the resolution here. Rule 23 3 provides the general rule that council may change its rules or amend its rules when with just a majority of a quorum present. So right now there's 12 people present, and that would normally be 7. However, there is an exception under Rule 23, which states no rule may be suspended or amended in derogation of an existing right or privilege of any member except by a 2/3 vote of all the members of council. In this particular case, as the charter indicates, President of Council presides over council. Under Rule 3 of council's rules, as it now exists, the President has the right to establish and enforce rules for speakers to ensure proper decorum, including, but not limited to, enforcing the 3-minute time limit for each speaker and prohibiting the use of obscene and profane language. Decorum is not defined in our rules, but our rules say that when something's not defined in our rules, you look to Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules defines decorum at pages 391 through 394 as a number of different things. And one of those things is confining your remarks to the merits of the pending question. It also mentions, with regard to public comment for public bodies, that the presiding officer on page 96 to 97 of Robert's Rules, public bodies may invite non-members to express their views, but this is done under the control of the presiding officer, subject to any relevant rules adopted by the body and subject to appeal by a member. Often by rule or practice, time limits are placed on speakers, and relevance is closely monitored. By a resolution allowing a member to speak on any topic is so broad that any ability for the President to maintain decorum and order by, for example, keeping to some sort of matter of public interest is so broad that it is in derogation, or that's the word that the rule used, but if you look up the word derogation, it means it takes away or denigrates or makes less a privilege or right. The current rules that were enacted on January 3rd of 2017 at the charter-mandated organizational meeting give the President the right to enforce order and establish decorum, which, as I said, includes an element of relevance to that. So this is a resolution which takes away that right, or denigrates, or derogates that right as a specific thing. And as a result, it needs a 2/3 vote of all the members of council for it to pass. That's what it says in the plain language of the rule. 2/3 of all of council is 9 persons. It's not 2/3 of all of council present, but I don't think it would matter too much here. But it's 2/3 of all of council. That's 9 votes. And that is the reason why this is defeated pursuant to Rule 23.
Councilman Guy, your legislation.
Yes. Now, procedurally, I guess, as a point of order, I want the sponsor to particularly note that the question that he responded to and the way he responded means that he was plotting in advance to come up with a way to destroy your legislation. But he's supposed to be the city solicitor, represent all of us. And he's also supposed to be the person there giving the parliamentary answers, right? So I just need to put a light on that. I know we're sitting here seeing it. The other thing is that he didn't say anything about looking up whether city council has the authority to change the number of votes necessary to pass a resolution. Because essentially he's saying that your resolution, which the charter says needs 7 votes. He's saying that bunk the charter, city council can vote to make it be 9 votes, and then city council can't change its mind and just make a decision on 7 votes. So he needs to bring you a case, because if that's the case, we could have voted that the rules of council can't be changed unless there's a unanimous number of votes, right? So what I'm saying to you is that that's
Point of
absurd.
order. Your point of order is what, Mr. Guy?
Motion to strike all of what he said, and we need to pass it. And then if he wants to come back and sign his name on a legal opinion saying that we can't do it, then we'll honor that, right? But right now,
But
today,
also clarity of your point of order, Mr. Guy.
huh?
I said also for clarity of your point of order, Councilman McCoy, did you send your legislation to the law department for review?
Yes.
Were you consulted?
I did get a chance to speak to someone, and like I said, the concern did come up. But they made me aware.
Of 9 votes.
No, not of 9 votes.
Are
Actually,
you all aware of your? Are you all?
She's speaking. Let her speak. You asked her a question. Let her speak.
Well, he cut across you to say something about her. Point of order,
She
Councilman
answered.
Turner. Point of order, Councilman Turner.
That's fine.
9 votes.
Oh, y'all, I'm great.
You still speaking?
About the 9 votes.
So, no.
You did.
Actually,
Did you ask about the number of votes that was necessary?
No, I did not ask about the number of votes that was necessary. But if I may state that I actually have read that if we were actually not taking away a right or anything, that we actually, you only needed 9 votes to take away a right. And we were actually giving something. So I didn't think that we needed 9 votes for that.
Do you want to address?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, first off, I was asked a legal opinion and prepared it ahead of time on this. So I did have my thoughts collected.
Maybe
The way in which a right is taken away is it says that if a privilege or right of a member of council is being taken away by a resolution, then it needs 2/3 vote. And by charter and code, and also by rule, president of council is a member of council. She has the authority to preside over these proceedings, maintain order and decorum, and this limits her ability to do that. Theoretically, if someone were to say, just come up and talk about, read from some book that has nothing to do with public business, that would be a matter of any topic. Because that's what the broadness of your resolution is. It says any topic whatsoever. If it had said something of public interest or a matter of public concern to this committee or to the council, that probably, I don't know for sure, but that probably would have been fine. But this is anything. And so that means that anyone can say anything, and she has no control over whether it has anything to do with it. They could come up and complain about, her family or whatever, and that's really not appropriate. She should be able to control it, and yet it's any topic. So this is in derogation of her right to control, as presiding officer, the proceedings, and that's how that comes about. The council has the right, as Mr. Guy has indicated, to make its own rules. By charter, it can make its own rules. But it's bound, to some extent, by its own rules. And because this session started out, a session's 4 years, the session started out in January of 2017, it sets the ground rules for council. And put in place in these rules is this rule that establishes, it's supposed to mean stability, it's supposed to create stability in council. And so that, 7 people, a quorum of 7 people could get together otherwise, and then 4 of those people could change the rules out from underneath it. So in order to maintain stability, that is in this rule, and it's recognized under Robert's rules as well. At the end of the session, when you get a new council comes in 2021, January of 2021, they get to make their own rules again. And those rules are should be, unless you say otherwise, they can say that you could say in those rules. Unanimous. You need a unanimous decision of this council to change all those rules during that session, during that 4 years. What is not permitted under Robert's rules is for you to bind another session in that fashion. So that's what it comes from. There's no plot. There's just a question was asked. Everyone gets to ask me questions. Councilman Gray gets to ask me questions. Everyone does. And I don't talk to other people about the questions that people ask me. So I'm not plotting. I'm giving the best answer I could. This time I could prepare because someone asked me that question.
I also like to reiterate, I think the Councilman Friel also stated that he would support it if you didn't have the standing committee, because it also, our rules gives the chair the ability to conduct his meeting the way he would want to. And he said because of that, and Rule 23 would degrade the chair's power as well, then that's what I believe he stated that that's why he did not support it. So based on your rules, and I want all the public to know, every council member has a copy of their rules, and they are supposed to be knowledgeable of the rules in the operation of this body, and pursuant upon Rule 23, as the city solicitor reconfirmed, that's why it was defeated. I'd like to move on with the agenda. Councilman Guy, your resolution, please.
Yes.
I have a comment.
Councilman Guy, your resolution, please.
My hand was up before, but go ahead.
Okay, Madam President, I have a resolution to present. Agenda item 4729.
Resolution 19068, Agenda 4729. Whereas on January 3rd, 2017, the 107th session of Wilmington City Council adopted Resolution 17001, which established the permanent rules of the legislative body. And whereas there is interest among members of council to amend the rule regarding standing committees to include a personnel committee, and whereas the personnel committee would consider city council personnel matters, review and recommend to council on matters relating to personnel employed by the city of Wilmington and
small subcommittee. I support this legislation because there is a need, and I don't know if you are totally in tune with what's going on with the staff or not, but there's a lot going on. And again, my suggestion was to take some of the weight off of you. It wasn't to take power away from you, but maybe allow other council members to step in to allow you to not have to carry all the weight and to make all the decisions. Thank you.
Councilmember Friel?
I'm a little confused. We're on the last item on this agenda, right?
That's correct.
So this isn't forming a committee. This is saying that all members of council, all 13 members, will be involved in hiring, firing, et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's correct.
Okay, so this isn't forming a committee. I just want to make that clear because I thought I thought we had already voted on that one. So. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Congo?
Yes, thank you. And just to Councilman Friel's point, and to Councilman Adams, I think that we're forgetting that all 13 of us were asked to hire the staff at inauguration. So that did happen. Like, it did come before all 13 members, and it's just a majority. If it was 7 that vote for it, it passed. So if you voted for it then, I just don't understand why you wouldn't still want to have that same type of involvement, because we were already asked, and it passed. So if 9 members don't want to vote the same way as you voted in inauguration, I don't get it. I'm struggling with trying to understand that. And all 13 members will have say, but it's just going to be like it always is, 7 rules. So if 7 members say we want to do something with hiring or firing or with staff, I mean, that's how it should be, and that's how it was intended to be, even in this session at inauguration. And I think that's what some of my colleagues are missing, is that this already happened, and the president initiated it. So we're just asking that's for that same involvement. So we'll see, but I just don't understand why some of my colleagues who voted for it are now saying they don't want to have anything to do with it. That's confusing. Thank you.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes, I would just like to say that in one of my former jobs, when they were hiring, they would comprise a panel. Usually it's like 7 people. We'd get the resumes of all the applicants. We'd go over it. We'd discuss it. We'd interview the people. We'd score it. We'd look at it, and then we hire the person. So I don't understand why they don't think a panel could hire someone. That's the way they do it in the state, at least in the department I was in. And the panel did not consist of the same people. It was sort of, they'd ask you if you wanted to do it. It was voluntary. If not, you didn't have to.
Councilmember Turner?
I'm good, Madam President.
Councilwoman Harley? I think you spoke. Oh, you, okay, good.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention that I definitely have been merging all of these conversations together, but I do support this resolution, number 4730, and I do agree with my council colleagues. And again, like I said, these conversations have just been overlapping, and I just think it is time for us to be able to contribute and to participate. And if we voted originally on January the 2nd, 2017, why can't we participate and be involved now? Thank you.
Councilwoman McCoy?
Thank you, Madam President. So to be clear, I just want to make certain, we're just going to be, if this passes, we're just basically going to start seeing a resolution. If any type of changes in staff happens, if we decide to bring someone on, it basically will come before council to just vote, just like it is now. So that's basically what happened. That will be part of our involvement.
Councilman Guy, your last comment, sir?
Is this my first 5 minutes or second 5?
Second.
Second?
Yes,
Okay.
second.
So I want to comment on what was just stated, because in this resolution, it talks about us acting pursuant to a resolution, which means normally resolutions go to a committee first. Well, in this instance, the appropriate committee would be the Personnel Committee. That would be the appropriate committee to discuss these personnel matters, right? So there currently is no committee to discuss hiring, firing, pay rates, etc. So, for example, the lady who was terminated, we never got to sit around and discuss whether it was appropriate or not. We were just totally disregarded. She did work for me too, because some people actually are almost scared to help with certain things because they don't want to get in trouble with the people who they think can hire and fire them. So they're actually scared, some people are, to assist with certain things. And it shouldn't be that way. It's not even right. In fact, when we pass this, everybody who works for city council can go home and sleep better tomorrow night, because they know that there's some level of protection that somebody just can't wake up the next day and tell them they're fired. They don't have that minimal protection. And when we talk about the case, the court case, the administrative case, unemployment case, there's actually a public record saying that Wilmington City Council terminated somebody without just cause. But if it had been discussed amongst all of us, or those of us who were interested, and the person just couldn't be terminated at the whim of somebody, internally we might have determined that there's no reason to terminate somebody. We'd at least had some responsibility in what's happening, because we get all the blame. Everything that happens, city council did it. City council did it, and we ain't done a daggone thing. I'm tired. They're the ones who said Rule 23, so where does it say that?
Well,
In the rules. I'm only asking you about
well,
the rules.
I'm not on being cross-examined. I'm going to give you my answer.
Here we go with the shade.
And so, if you want me to speak, Mr. Guy, I'll
Now, I
speak.
want you to tell us first
Mr. Guy,
what the
please,
rules
will you allow the
say.
parliamentarian to answer?
In Resolution 17, 2017-002, which was the second resolution when you had your organizational meeting pursuant to Charter Section 2104. You indicated at that time that council deems it desirable to retain individuals who shall serve at the pleasure of the city council president. That rule was establishing the authority of the president to hire and fire. So that happened at that time. The city council charter, or the charter for the city, says council shall determine its own rules in order of business, provide for such committees as it deems necessary, and define the duties of the city clerk and employees. That's in 201, dealing with organization of council officer rules and employees. You did so in January 3rd, 2017. In doing so, you passed a rule which says that if you take away from or derogate the existing rules of a member of council, president of council is a member of council under the charter, then you must, when you change that rule during the session, before a new session starts, pass it by having a 2/3 majority of all the members of council. That is a rule, whether you read it or not, that you passed, and you are bound by until the session is over. When the session is over, you can make other rules, and you can decide who can hire and fire and all that. But this is what the rule you created. You, in addition to that, have within the rules itself, provision rule 6, talking about president's authority to determine the duties of each member of staff and employees. That's also in the rules. You additionally have a provision dealing with salary increases in the rules. So the rules themselves are both parliamentary and also organizational. They were passed pursuant to a mandated organizational meeting, and they're not intended to be changed unless you have a supermajority vote. That theory or rationalization exists under our rules, and it exists also under Robert's rules. So that's the reason why the supermajority applies to this as well.
So now, as I'm saying, what I'm saying is this here. Everything that he said was us making a decision to let certain things be handled. We have the authority to change what we decided to do. He still has not brought to us any authority that allows us to change the number of votes to pass an ordinance or a resolution. I'm going to tell you how silly this sounds to me. That's like us as city council sitting here.
30 seconds, Mr. Guy.
And we vote to say that it takes 9 votes to pass an ordinance. That's like us saying we're changing the charter to say it takes 7 votes to pass takes 9 votes to pass a resolution. He got to provide more than him. He's on their team. So please don't go for this okey doke. If he got something he want to bring later that's for real, then he can bring it. And if he's right, so be it. But please go ahead and vote for the changes we need to have.
Your time, Mr. Guy.
And we can see what happens after that. But don't believe the hype. Don't believe it.
Clerk will call the roll.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Councilman Congo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Oliver.
No.
Councilwoman Harley.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilwoman McCoy.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
No.
Councilman Friel.
No.
Councilman Adams.
No.
Councilwoman Dixon.
Yes.
Councilman Guy.
Yes.
President Shabazz.
No.
7 yeas, 5 nays, 1 absent.
Pursuant to Rule 23, the 7 yeas is not sufficient to pass this, and therefore is defeated with the required 9 votes. Declared defeated. I accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.